forward to talk about drug pricing in a second, but let me just comment briefly on this. As you know, we spent a couple of years studying the issue of unaccompanied kids, UACs, and HHS has, in my view, a very difficult job to do, which is to help with regard to kids who come without their parents. These are unaccompanied kids. Now we have added to that with the separation of kids from families, which I think was a bad idea, and I commend the President for the executive order which changes that approach. We've now got to deal with the kids who are already in this system. But even though you have a very tough job to do, as you may know, in the Obama administration and in the Trump administration, I have not felt as though HHS has done a very good job in a very tough situation, because they have not come up with this agreement between Department of Homeland Security and HHS. There is a memorandum of understanding and a commitment to come up with an operating agreement so we can understand how the handoff occurs, who's in charge. But as recently as April of this year, we had a hearing on this, and HHS said that they're willing to take a fresh look at the question of who has responsibility for these kids once they leave HHS detention facility or placed with a sponsor. My concern is that nobody's responsible. And I got involved in this initially because of these 8 children who ended up coming from Guatemala, ended up in an egg farm in Ohio because they were given to their traffickers in the Obama administration, rather than to a family that was going to take care of them. So my question to you today is, and again, I'll get to drug pricing in a second, which was mentioned by question, but one, you are taking a fresh look at this, as I understand it. You have a July deadline to come up with this operations agreement. I don't know if you followed this closely, but are you on track on the operations agreement with DHS, and who is going to be accountable or responsible for these children once they leave a federal government agency's custody and go off with a sponsor?
So we have a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Homeland Security to ensure adequate and full vetting of any potential sponsor. These are relatives. Mm-hmm. They're either parents or aunts, uncles, adult relatives.
Well, again, in the case of the egg farm, they were trafficked.
Well, that was obviously there was a mistake that something happened,
right.
And so we have to have
This is how we got into it, right?
Including
so better screening, it's a good thing.
Screening, exactly.
Yeah.
Once they are placed with a sponsor, they are no longer subject to our jurisdiction. We cannot sort of pull a child back from a relative. We don't have the legal authority. They are then under the state and local child welfare laws, as well as, of course, they're subject to any immigration proceedings that they may have. But we don't have any authority to go out and pull a child back from a sponsor once they're in that sponsor's custody. That would be local child welfare authorities that would at that point be accountable. Obviously, we learn about it, we would let
and again,
abuse, we would let the authorities know.
I want to get on to drug pricing for a second here, but one of the concerns, obviously, is that we weren't even, and this goes back to the Obama administration again, and the first part of the Trump administration, not even telling the states that the kid was in their jurisdiction, so kind of hard for child welfare to step in. And again, there is an issue of getting these kids to their hearing. I mean, that's the idea. More than half of them, we think, are not showing up for the hearing, which is the whole idea, to get them with a family pending their hearing on their immigration status. So we have some work to do still. I know you're aware of that. I just want to make sure you knew that we're going back and forth with your team, and we expect to have this operations agreement in place by July, as was committed to during our April hearing. On drug pricing, for a second. I know Senator Stabenow talked about one of the issues that's a big deal to me, which is how you deal with the opioid crisis and the people who need naloxone, which is this miracle drug that reverses the effects of an overdose, and specifically the Evzio cost increases, $575 for a naloxone auto-injector in 2014, just 4 years ago today, over $4,000 for one of these things. And so you go on your dashboard, which I applaud you for. You have a dashboard now where you can see drug pricing information more transparently, but it is very confusing because it shows Part D spending per unit, this is for Medicare, obviously, increased from $739 to $4,500, and the list price was actually below both of these. And when we push on this, we're told, well, this doesn't include some other information like the manufacturer's rebates or other price concessions, which seems to run the other way. But anyway, we've been pushing on this and trying to get HHS to give us an answer. Why can't all that information be on the dashboard? If consumers are really going to have the transparency that you want and we want, why can't we also include what's going on with regard to the rebates or other price concessions?
Well, I mean, taking it beyond the naloxone and that particular drug instance, disclosing publicly negotiated rebate rates is disclosing highly confidential information. Let's say we took just any other regular drug and we started publicly disclosing negotiated discounts. There could be very serious anti-competitive issues with that, as there would be if Walmart were forced to disclose their Tide discounts. Their competitors would love to have that information more than anything. So we have to be careful here. We're happy to get you whatever information we have, but that's just an initial reaction on that issue of disclosing whatever the discounted rate would be on a particular product.
I would think,
Be the concern.
you know,
Senator, your time is up.
well, these drugs are bought by the taxpayer, not Tide. Tide is bought by some taxpayers, but it's a different issue. So one, with regard to us getting the transparency and consumers on Medicare and Medicaid, I would think we're going to end up there. We've got to figure out how to figure out a way to provide that information.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.